Hey, everybody. Kevin here with Pursuing Pixels, and welcome back to another edition of Save It for the Cast. And you know the drill by now. This week we've got the full crew in the house once again, so I'll be kicking the ball over to John, Randall, and I here in just a little bit. The video game conversation coming up between the three of us is definitely pretty focused this time around. We mostly spin off talking about, I put some time into Dead Space Extraction after Randall and I had kind of talked about potentially syncing up on that game for an episode of the podcast proper, but he hasn't had any time to sink his teeth into that one just yet, so we decided to, or I decided to kind of tease him with what I had played of it so far. Only put about an hour or two into that game, if that. But we end up talking about that, talking about, some other Wii light gun shooters and also some shaky cam from, movies from that era and also bullet time, slow motion. But yeah, we talk a little House of the Dead overkill, and then we spin off talking about some other horror games and even some VR. And then at the very end, we kind of veer off into some other topics and talk about the potential Switch 2 price increase. And then I've also just scooped up some other games on Switch physically recently, specifically Nintendo games. So we talk a little bit about a few of those, and then Randall also laying the gauntlet down that he's not going to be spending any games or spending any money on games this year. So we'll see. We'll follow that through line through the rest of the year here and see how he does. But as always, I got to talk about some of the stuff that I've been playing and kind of leaning into some of those Nintendo pickups that I've scooped up recently, although I'm not talking about any of those games in particular, but I've really been on a big-time Nintendo kick. But before I get to that, I do want to give a quick shout-out to this game that I've barely put any time into, but I've had my eyes on it for a long time, and it went on sale on the Switch for $2, so I finally scooped it up. It's normally $20, but the game's called Lunark, and it's one of those, cinematic platformers, think Flashback, Quest for Identity, or Out of This World, or Another World, depending on what region you're in. And then even some of the more recent games, not anywhere near, we're talking PlayStation 1 era, but they've made some more recent games in that series, but like Odd World. But any of those games where Prince of Persia was kind of like the originator. I can't believe I forgot to mention that one. But Lunark here, I don't always love those games. I really want to like them. I love the presentation of them, but just sometimes the game feel and the overall, just in particular in Another World, you just very much have to do the exact specific thing they want you to do. It almost has a little bit of a point and click adventure kind of vibe to it. And again, with this game Lunark, I've barely played any of it, but I will say the opening tutorial and just the game feel, it just feels like something about bringing that cinematic platformer genre into the modern generation is really just able to smooth off some of those rough edges. And the pixel art, it's very much like an 8-bit pixel art style. Maybe there's some 16-bit going on, or maybe it's somewhere in between, but it just looks fantastic. It's got a little bit of a sci-fi theme to it. So at the very beginning of the game, your character is kind of flying in on this spaceship, and just the perspective of it, the way it almost looks like it's rotating and it's in full 3D or it's pre-rendered or something, which I don't believe it is. I think a lot of the pixel art animation is all done in a rotoscope sort of fashion like those old games were, but maybe just bumping up the frame rate or something like that. I don't know what it is, but it just feels great to play. The opening tutorial bit was just fantastic. The way it kind of just walks you through controlling this other robot to stand on these certain platforms, and by just walking through in this one single screen room where you're basically your character's standing at a control panel, basically holding a controller and then controlling this robot that moves just like your character does, just by standing on these different panels or these marked tiles on the ground. You're able to just get the full scope of all the movement in the game. And then even after that, if you were to, for whatever reason, if you were to skip over that little side mini game tutorial, there's a full regular tutorial after that. So that's kind of right where I left off on the game. But the little bit I played, I was just man, this is the fact that I grabbed this for $2. I almost feel guilty because it really feels just so polished. I really can't wait to play some more of that one, because I've always wanted to love that genre, and I've just never really been able, other than Oddworld, that's probably the furthest I've made it into any of those games, but still by no means have come anywhere near, the finish line on any game in that series. But yeah, really looking forward to playing some more Lunark, and just wanted to give that one a quick shout out because I was very impressed with the opening, 10 or 15 minutes or so. But onto the Nintendo stuff that I've been playing. I've been on a massive Kirby kick lately, mostly spawned off of replaying Kirby in the Forgotten Land with my nephew. And I talked about this a little bit with John and Randall the last time we sat down, not on like an episode proper, but just kind of chatting how I was replaying that with my nephew. And I feel like I kind of sold this game short a little bit when we talked about it on the podcast proper. I know Randall and I think we were both, at least in my memory, Randall was like, oh man, you were bashing that game when I brought it up the other day. In my mind, I was pretty lukewarm on it. But just was like, didn't leave a lasting impression on me. But replaying it here with my nephew, it very much is leaving a lasting impression on me. And part of that probably is because I'm playing it with my nephew and he's having so much fun. He really, this has been the game that he's been gravitating towards, like even over Luigi's Mansion, partially because him and his dad beat that game at home. But we were making some pretty good progress on that one, and that seemed to be like the main game he wanted to play every time up until we popped Forgotten Land in. And then, over the course of like probably 4 or 5, maybe even 6 different sessions, we played through the entire game, just beat it the last time that I was over there babysitting on Wednesday. And I just had an absolute blast ripping through this game. I think what made it more fun this time around is because the way that I play a game when I'm playing by myself, I ended up finding enough of the Waddle Dees in each level. There's like, maybe anywhere between 8 and 11 or something on any given stage. And then you need a certain number of them at the end of the world to unlock the boss stage. And when I'm playing on my own, I'm ending up finding enough of the Waddle Dees on the first playthrough where I don't really need to like go through the level again and explore a little bit more. Where my nephew, he's kind of just running ahead and I'm like, hey, we got to go back over here. There might be a secret this way. And sometimes I can wrangle him in, but sometimes we either progressed a little too far along and we can't go back, or he's just, sees something else up ahead and is just uninterested in backtracking. So because of that, we've had to replay a lot of the levels, and then it's like, oh, we got to rescue the ducklings this time around. That's like the one thing that I can see that we still need to do, and bring them back to the mother duckling. And there's just so many cute little elements in this game and so many little hidden nooks and crannies and secrets, and it was just so fun. And to be able to see the game through his eyes and like how excited he gets just by all the different, transformations and stuff like that. And honestly, how he was able to wrangle that game. Again, he's not even 4, he'll be 4 pretty soon here, but not even 4 years old yet. And even with like the car transformation and the cone and the various, power-ups, Mario Odyssey style in that game, he's mostly able to figure out what he needs to do with a little guidance from me. So really having fun with that one, or really had a blast with that one, because I did polish that off. And then spawning off of that, we also played a little bit of Return to Dreamland, which I scooped up, Return to Dreamland Deluxe, that is, on the Switch recently. We only played like 1 or 2 levels of that one, but it left a little bit of an impression with him, because on the very first stage, you get like this giant sword, and then every time we play a different Kirby game, he keeps going, where's the big sword? Where's the big sword? So I'm hoping that we can just, transition onto that one next, because I really never put any significant time into that one on the Wii, maybe played through like the first world or so. So I'm looking forward to revisiting that game, or visiting that game for the first time, I guess. But as for revisiting, I've also been popping in Kirby Squeak Squad on the DS, and I'm about 2, maybe 2.5 worlds through that game, and just really having a good time with that one. I remember that one, for whatever reason, being one of my favorite Kirby games. This one was on the DS, and I just love the pixel art of it. It was the first Kirby game that I played. I never played any of the ones on Game Boy Advance, so it was the first like 32-bit Kirby game that I played, and one of the first ones where like I felt all those, because I never played Kirby Superstar back in the day, so it was the first one for me where I felt like all the different power-ups had more of like that Super Smash Brothers style of like expressiveness, where you can press like up and attack and it might do something different, or if you're airborne and pressing down, it might do something different. Like every power-up felt like it had a full move set, as opposed to just being like, one power up or whatever. So I've been really enjoying revisiting that one. It's got a little bit of a different pace to it as well. Like it's mostly any other Kirby 2D platformer, but there are these sections where you have to steal these treasure chests from the Squeak Squad, these like giant mice characters that are like the villains of the game. And you basically, like, once you go into their lair and take the chest, it kind of turns into like, it reminds me a little bit of Wario Land 4. not in the sense that you have to race your way back through the level, but it just kind of like all of a sudden the characters are chasing you until you can either take them out or just run to the end of the level and keep the treasure chest. And like the one little gimmick of the game that gets a little bit annoying, I will admit, on the DS is Kirby has like his stomach on the bottom screen. All the action takes place on the top, and then he can only hold 5 things in his stomach. And they can be anything from upgraded power-ups, to swap between different abilities, or the treasure chest. There can be up to 3 of them in a stage. So 3 of those 5 slots can be occupied by the treasure chest. And that's part of the risk reward. You're supposed to like decide, okay, I need to keep these power-ups, so I'll have to come back for this treasure chest or something like that. But for me, I just want to keep like ripping through. I'm only going for the treasure chest. I'm really not preserving my power-ups all that much, so it's kind of annoying or tedious to have to keep, stopping the action and just like you can just grab a bubble that the power-up or whatever is in that you don't want and kind of flick it off the screen and it'll disappear. But it's just like a little added tedium to playing the game that otherwise is just like a super fast, smooth 2D Kirby game. So I've been having a blast with that one. And then also, I still had Kirby and the Rainbow Curse sitting in my Wii U. So, I've been watching some March Madness games this weekend. I've just been picking up the Wii U tablet and plowing through a few levels here and there. So I ended up, I think last time I talked about it, I had only played through the first world. I just polished off the second and third world, and I think the first level of the fourth world, or maybe I just looked at the stage real quick. I can't remember. But this game, I will admit, it's a little bit annoying. It's all touchscreen controls, and it can get a little finicky. It's a sequel, I guess, if you will, to Kirby Canvas Curse on the DS. So this game is just taking that same control scheme and bringing it to the Wii U. And it, like I said, it's a game you can play entirely on the touchpad. You actually have to play it entirely on the touchpad. It will mirror the image, on the TV screen, but you really have to just be looking at the touchpad at all times. But the game does look phenomenal, even on the kind of janky, old school Wii U screen. It really looks great, that claymation style. But it really looks fantastic when you see it in full HD on the big screen. But I've been having some fun with that one in spite of the frustrations with the touchscreen controls. And sometimes you just want to do a specific maneuver and there's just like, I got to wait for Kirby to, like, the last world that I was in, for example, was like an underwater world for the most part. So like you have to get Kirby to kind of cling to the bottom of the yarn or the line that you're drawing instead of on the top where he'll just kind of roll along it. So it just gets it because otherwise Kirby kind of floats towards the top of the surface of the water. So it just gets a little bit finicky, a little bit frustrating. But in spite of that, I am having a lot of fun. The boss battles are pretty creative. And yeah, I'm having a blast with all those Kirby games. And then one other game I just wanted to give a quick shout out to because they just added it to the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pass is Mario versus Donkey Kong. And I'm kind of surprised to see this one because they've done a full-blown remake on the Switch. But this is a game that I've never really played. I think I even talked about the demo for the Switch version and being kind of impressed with that one. And I know I've talked about Donkey Kong 94 at least a little bit on the podcast, or have, if not, I've done a video for it on the YouTube channel. But this game very much is a sequel to that on the Game Boy Advance. And yeah, it's very much, I'm having a blast with this game. The only thing that I will complain about is it's like a little bit slow paced in the sense like every level you're getting like a little introduction that's showing you a new move mechanic or new enemy mechanic that might be introduced on that particular stage or in that particular world, which in one way is super impressive because they're constantly layering on new mechanics. I'm on the the fourth world now, and the third world. And it's still every level they're showing me something that's totally new to that stage, which is really impressive. But at the same time, it really slows down the pace. And then at the end of each stage, maybe it's if you get all the treasure or the presents, there's like 3 scattered presents on each stage. And then you get to like do a little mini game with those. So I've been going for those on every stage. And then at the end of the level, I got to do this, it's a quick little mini game, but it can just be a little bit frustrating when you're just otherwise it's kind of like a single screen. There can be a little bit of scrolling, but a single screen arcade puzzle platformer. And I just want to keep ripping through the levels, and it keeps like kind of Start and stop. But like I said, just like I've been doing with Kirby and the Rainbow Curse, I've just been playing this on my Switch while I've been watching the March Madness tournament this weekend and flipping between, various games and whatnot. So it's been perfect for that. So, it's got a little bit of weirdness. Like I kind of love and don't love, but it looks a little weird, especially without having like any kind of, I guess it wouldn't have been a CRT screen on the Game Boy Advance, but the pixels, like it's going for that like 3D. I don't know if it's pre-rendered, but it very much reminds me of how Mario Pinball Land looks, or even it's got a little bit of like that Donkey Kong Country kind of vibe, but it still looks like pixel art to me, but just sort of 3D. It looks like it's like it looks like the proto version of what New Super Mario Brothers games look like. And I don't love how those games look, but this game has a little more personality than those, I feel. And I guess those games did have personality when they first came out. I feel like now that they've made 4 or 5 sequels to the original on the DS of, New Super Mario Brothers, it does feel like, okay, it's just rinse and repeat with the style. But it did have its own kind of look at the time. I don't want to sell it fully short there, but yeah, I think I've done more than enough rambling. This is going to be one of the longer intros we've done in a while here. So, I'll kick it over to John, Randall, and I for some more video games chit-chat here without further ado. And until next week, we will catch you then, and take care. I'm guessing you haven't had any time to put any time into Dead Space Extraction yet. Is that correct?
That's correct. Remember when I said I was going to play that? You remember that?
I do. I hopped right on the horse after that, and I haven't played it much since. To be fair, but I will say I'm not like itching to play more of it in particular, but it's pretty cool. It's got some cool mechanics. The thing that bugs me the most about it, and I even dialed the setting all the way down on the camera shake.
Yeah.
Because obviously it's like an on-rail shooter where the camera's kind of moving on its own, but it is so jittery and shaky, and like, I don't know, this had to be like in the Bourne Identity days of taking like some inspiration from stuff like that, because it's just so, I don't know. It's bothersome while you're playing.
Yeah, what was that shaky cam? That shaky cam movie that was like Blizzardy and some. There you go. That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah. So that aspect of it is not great.
Same time period-ish, I think.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. But it does have one of the cooler mechanics I've seen in a game like that. So like, a lot of games have like this like bullet time, feature or whatever. Oh, yeah. But this game has like a second mechanic. So obviously you're playing on the Wii, so you're using the Wii remote to aim and shoot and whatever. But then one of the trigger buttons on the nunchuck, and I couldn't quite figure out how the cooldown system worked for this, but because there was some kind of indicator on the reticle, but I couldn't tell like how long it took and how many charges of it I had to use. But I think it was like you had 3 or 5 of them to use, and you could essentially like tag an enemy with that. And then it would put that enemy in slow motion, like only that enemy. So everything else stays in real time. So you could be like, oh, this zombie or this monster or whatever is like charging at me. Or I know that type is like a little more dangerous. So I'm going to like use one of my tags on them and slow them down for, I don't know if it was 10 seconds, 15 seconds, whatever. So you can like, get some headshots in. And then it also has this mechanic, which is kind of annoying, but it's kind of cool as well. Like where most of the weapons you have, if you like turn the Wii remote sideways, it kind of like goes into a secondary firing mode. So like your main weapon that you start out with is like a rivet gun, and so you literally on some parts you have to like turn it sideways and you like not weld things shut, but you like rivet them. Like at one point there's like these zombies coming in and they're pushing through this wall, and then your partner that you're with is like holding stuff there, and you got to take your rivet gun and slam the bolts in and get it to seal the beams so that they can't get through.
How does that feel?
And then it kind of, calms down. It feels you got to be kind of spot on, and like for the rivet gun you have to like charge it up. So there was one point where like they were clearly trying to make it seem like I had a limited amount of time and I had to do this very fast, but I was struggling, and it was clearly going to just let me take as long as I needed to do it. So it kind of like ruin the illusion or the sense of immersion a little bit.
Yeah.
But that said, I mean, it's pretty cool. It's cool to play a light gun game that has like a little bit more of a sense of like a presentation to it, or like a story, or like kind of how like House of the Dead Overkill did. I mean, that obviously had a totally different tone, but it's like, oh, this feels like a little bit more than just like an arcade game in the sense of like the settings and the explorations and or exploration and stuff like that.
Nice.
But yeah, it's pretty cool. I definitely recommend popping it in and checking it out, especially if you end up like playing that Dead Space remake or remaster or whatever, and like enjoy the setting and stuff like that. And granted, this is me having like zero frame of reference for that. I've never played any of those other than just being somewhat aware of them, but it's kind of cool. It is pretty gruesome and pretty grim as well. Like people are just dying left and right. Like even the I think the person you play as in the tutorial, like the tutorial ends with just you dying, and then you just like take over as like that character's girlfriend or something like that. I can't remember. I was just like, man, this is intense. I didn't expect
That's
this
pretty
to be
cool,
like,
actually. I kind of like that.
Yeah, like the tutorial literally is like all of your like teammates and everything getting corrupted, and you have to kill all them. And then you just die at the end after you get corrupted. It's like, holy shit. And then it jumps forward, like not that much further forward. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know if you play as her or if you just come across her when you're playing as the new character you play as. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But, there's some kind of interconnected aspect with his girlfriend, or if it might even be his fiance. They like just got engaged, and then too bad, so sad.
Good on her for avenging that. I don't know that I would make that choice considering what happened to everybody else. You know, that's a little rough.
Yeah, it was definitely brutal.
Yeah.
But it was cool. And cool to see a game with that kind of tone on the Wii. You know, I feel like that was more of an outlier in those days to get a game. I mean, you got like the Resident Evils and some games in that vein, but not, you know, they're fewer and further between.
Yeah,
for sure.
House of the Dead Overkill was another one that got some press for being edgy during that time. Similarly,
yeah. And even that was like edgy, but like almost more in like a
teenage,
almost way more in like a comical way too. You know, like it was more like B movie style, where this is definitely like this is actual like horror movie type vibes. Which is cool. And then I do really like the aspect of like a horror game being totally like the camera being totally dictated. Even if you think back to like Resident Evil, you know, the original stuff, like having those fixed camera angles and stuff like that. You can just do so much with like the atmosphere and the setting, or even the jump scares or whatever. You know, you can just do so much with taking that control away from the player. Mm-hmm. You know, you think that would be limiting, and it is in some ways, but
it's cool.
It's level
for
design.
that kind of experience.
Like you're designing levels around having a fixed camera.
Yep.
Yeah. Because I saw that you played with the nunchuck and the Wii remote, so I thought you were gonna have some kind of ability to like use the nunchuck and the joystick to like look around and have some kind of free looking ability. And there are little chunks of the stage that you'll get to a point in the stage where it'll allow you to look around and do a little exploring. But that's done purely with the Wii remote and just like pointing at the edges of the screen. It kind of goes into like a little, almost like point and click section to be like, oh, explore, find the door that you need to access or whatever. Or security panel or this or that. But it's cool. It definitely has me like torn on whether I want to play and get the Dead Space remaster, because I'm like, man, this is pretty fucking dark and gruesome. Yeah, and I can stomach it on the Wii with this fidelity. I don't know if I'd be able to get on board if it was like super realistic.
Yeah,
and, you know, I shouldn't say get on board, but I think I'd be like a little squeamish for it possibly.
Yeah,
so
it's fair.
Like I've said before to you guys, like I always want to think I'm going to like that stuff, especially because so many of those games get such high praise. Resident Evil, Silent Hill.
That's exactly what I was thinking of.
But
yeah, like the Resident Evil Village.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I don't know if it's for me, or like even Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, the one that had the VR mode. Yep. Like my one buddy who was the chef at the restaurant I used to work at back back in Chicago. Like, he played that in VR, and he was like, that was the scariest shit that I have ever played in my life.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Which is compelling to me. It's like I'm so torn. It's like I want to check it out. I never will, because apparently it's only... I was debating getting the PS4 version so I could play it on the PS5 and if I ever got the VR, but it's only compatible with PS1 or PSVR 1 or whatever. Like, you can't play it on PSVR 2.
What?
Which is idiotic. Like a vast majority of the PSVR 1 stuff is not backwards compatible.
Oh, shit.
To the best of my understanding.
Oh, well, that's good to know.
That kind of really soured me. Yeah, it
Yeah.
really soured me on wanting the PlayStation VR.
I would have never assumed
There was
that.
someone in our Discord. Yeah, I know. There was someone in our Discord who was saying that the PSVR 2 is like incredible, and then he's like, and then Sony just totally didn't support it at all.
Yeah.
So there's very little worth playing on there, unfortunately.
Oof.
Which is sad. That was like kind of a half selling point for me getting a PS5.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, maybe someday I'll get the VR
Right.
so I can play all these games like Super Hot VR and even stuff I didn't know had VR. Like Everybody's Golf has a VR version, and
Yeah.
Astrobot has a VR game.
Oh,
There's quite a few PSVR original games that look pretty cool. Outside of like Beat Saber and the usual suspects.
Seems like even more of a reason to potentially go with the Steam goggles in the future, depending on what that could look like.
Well, if the price of the hardware ever goes down enough for them to continue making it, because
I was literally just going to bring that up because I was just
Christ.
reading today that there's rumors about the Switch 2 going up in price.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's real talk.
Potentially,
we live in
Same
the
with all of
fucking
them.
stupidest time.
That really,
yeah,
the
potentially
dumbest.
potentially up to $550 is what people are saying, which would be insane. And that could potentially kill the Switch 2, man.
Yeah.
Like
It
truly,
could kill
like, that would
the
kill
video
so much
game
momentum.
industry in a large way. Let's zoom it out, because I've heard the same about PS5. Let alone the fact that it's pushing back plans for the next generation of hardware. Because
I saw PS6 was getting kind of delayed.
Yeah.
Steam or Valve or whatever discontinued the lowest model of the Steam Deck, which that might have been an inevitable thing anyways, but
yeah,
still, or maybe it's not the lowest model, but one of the models, one of the three, they discontinued manufacturing.
feel lucky that we have the hardware that we do. Like, shit.
I know. I was sitting here when I bought my Switch thinking like, oh man, I'm getting ripped off. Like they probably jacked up the price a little with the tariffs and everything. And now it's like, oh man, I might have got lucky and got one cheap.
Yes.
Which is crazy to think about. And same with the PS5. I was thinking like, oh man, like it's $100 off, but they jacked the price up $50. It's like I'm barely saving any money, But
it's all relative.
Whatever. At the end of the day, it's like, and at the end of the day, like once I spend the money, it's just gone. Like I was sitting here almost like about those 3 Nintendo games. I don't know if you saw that in the Discord, Randall, but Best Buy had, I'm testing my luck. You've recommended buying some stuff from Best Buy. They had Luigi's Mansion HD 2 for $40.
Oh,
Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe for $40.
Those are good prices.
And Princess Peach Showtime for $30. So I was like,
geez, nice.
I'm gonna snag those puppies. It's kind of weird. The first one, it says Luigi's Mansion is gonna be delivered to me tomorrow from DoorDash, which is weird.
They do that.
And then,
no, they do that with their deliveries, the local deliveries sometimes. Okay. Instead, they'll use UPS sometimes, and they'll use DoorDash sometimes with like Roadie or whatever. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, and then the other one's coming from FedEx. And then I actually ended up ordering Kirby from Amazon because they were matching the price.
Yeah.
And I had $25 worth of points. So I was like, oh man, $15 for Kirby. I've been waiting. I actually almost bought Princess Peach Showtime for $40 used the other day, so I'm like juiced.
30 new is sick.
And same with Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. I was actually thinking about going back to that store because they had like 4 copies of it used for $40.
Yeah,
and they were all like nice clean copies. So I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll just go back there and scoop that up because my nephew's been loving both actually Princess Peach Showtime. Like I just showed him some videos of it, and he was like captivated by that game.
Yeah.
And then Luigi's Mansion 3, him and my brother just beat it last night. He just texted me. So they're a little further ahead than I am. But my brother, he was like, what a game, man.
Nice.
So my brother, never really get like he can get kind of like cynical and be like, oh, that was kind of lame, that was kind of cheesy.
Sure.
And this, he was just like, oh man, this is awesome.
Nice. Yeah, I was eyeballing Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. I was really eyeballing it, but yeah, $40 is crazy. Although I will say too, I'm gonna do what John decreed a year or two ago. I'm gonna try to do this where I'm not gonna buy games this year. I'm gonna try. This is where I'm at now.
God bless. I wish you luck.
All?
Yeah, I know.
Not gonna buy games at all.
At all.
Or?
Yeah, I'm gonna try. Granted, there's not that much like new or like down the pike that I'm very excited about at this point, if I'm being perfectly honest. But
yeah.
Well, I'm sorry for trying to get you to get the new Diablo 2.
No, that's that would be right in my wheelhouse. It's literally on my wish list. It has been forever. And, I will say, I say that, but I do still have like some already pre-bought, like when I bought it cheap, digital currency on both Xbox and on Nintendo eShop. So there's still opportunities for me to spend already spent money, I guess, on some stuff. But I'm not trying to spend new money on games if I can help it this year is basically where I'm coming from. Yeah.
Not even like collecting aspect?
No.
Nothing from that side?
No, which means I'm probably not going to bother doing the Retro Game Expo and any of that stuff as much as it pains me. I'm going to
Godspeed.
turtling down there a little bit.